the mic, turn up the audio, turn on that. Howdy, folks. Kevin here. I am joined by, is it she? Shiling, from UIlicious, and she's going to be giving a demo today of her software. And I should unmute her. That would be helpful, is to unmute her. Of UIlicious and what they are all about. I'm glad y'all have come to join. Hi, Sapan. Sapan, I think. Let me know if I pronounce that right. And so, yeah, share your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. She'll be giving a short demo of UIlicious and explaining what's so great about it, and then we'll do questions at the end. So with that, let's go ahead and kick it off if you want to start sharing your screen. There we go. It's sharing. Uh-oh, hold on. Shoot. It wouldn't happen without audio issues. So we had audio issues last time. I thought I had it fixed, and now I don't. Basically, they can hear your audio through my headphones, and so it's really, really, really quiet. Let me see. Default. I'm gonna need you to. How did I do this last time? Like, I had it working perfectly last time. I didn't change any settings, and that's how it goes. Speaker. If I do that, then I'm not going to be able to hear you. So hold on a second, because I can't hear you. Can you say something?
Hello.
Okay, so they can hear you on the screen now, the stream now. I can't
Is
hear you. So
oh
now I need to do something on my end because I want to be able to hear you. That's going to be very important. So, I think you can start talking, and I will.
okay.
Yeah, if you want to keep going. Sorry to interrupt. You had a really good flow going there, but yeah, if you
Yeah,
want to start talking, I can figure this out on my end.
okay. Yeah, so the reason why I wanted to create UIlicious was because I struggle a lot with getting Selenium to work. It's not that it's a bad tool, it's just that it was a lot of work to learn Selenium as and another thing was that I would one of the things about using Selenium is that you need to hard code your tests to CSS selectors to XFile selectors, which is something that I thought was not a very good practice simply because there was heavy refactoring going on the front end, and the CSS classes were constantly being changed. The XPath selectors would be irrelevant very quickly as well. So I wanted a more robust way to create tests in a way that you can describe it as if you're just telling a story, the BDD style, and have the test work that way. So I'm just going to run through a few basics of UIlicious, basic commands, as well as some of the nuances of how UIlicious works, how you can use it to do pretty interesting test cases with JavaScript, as well as a quick showcase of what you can do on much more complicated applications like Salesforce, for example. So let's get started over here. This is the UIlicious interface. You do not need to install a desktop application. It is completely available through a web application. And you can pop in over here to start writing your test and to execute it and see the results on the right side. So let's take a look at this example that I already have over here. So this is a showcase of the four most basic commands in UIlicious, which is to navigate, I go to click on something, which is I.click, to assert the presence of a text or an element. So over here, you're going to assert whether the word join GitHub appears on the page itself. So we do see that. So we get a check mark that says it's passing. And then you're going to fill in username, email, and password. And finally, we're going to click on the sign up button over again. So if you look at the test, for most part of it, we rely very little on using CSS or XPath selector. The last part over here that just says I click sign up button is just to let you know that you can still use CSS or XPath selectors as a fallback in case there's no better way to target something. For example, maybe you have an icon button, you have an image that you want to trigger, you want to interact with, but you don't have a textual label for it, then you can still fall back to using CSS or XPath selector. But for the most part, one of the core philosophy of UIlicious is test user journeys, not HTML. So, and the reason for that is we want to make sure that your test is easy to read, easy to maintain, so that maybe 6 months down the road, when you're looking at the tick and at the test to find out why is it breaking, to update it because the flow has changed, you are able to go back into the test and quickly understand what you're trying to do there. So another advantage of writing your test this way is that it's agnostic from the design of your UI or how it's coded. So technically, as long as the flow is the same, you can change the design. So right now, I'm just going to change the resolution, and the test will still work. So you can run UIlicious tests on, you can select any browsers that you want over here, from Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and IE 11 as well. And you can select a number of desktop and tablet resolutions. So we have over here the results running on the right side. You can see that it's running on the mobile version of .com, and the test is working as is passing. So is working well on the on the desktop resolution, as well as the mobile design of the website. Now, a very common question that people ask us is, how exactly does UIlicious identify the elements on the field? How does UIlicious know that the sign up button is a sign up button? How does UIlicious know whether the username field is the username field? Is it looking for a very specific way that the front end developer has coded the UI? Do we have to um, use proper semantic HTML for UIlicious to work? What UIlicious is doing underneath the hood is that for every command that is being executed, is dynamically analyzing the HTML of your web page itself, is also analyzing the CSS to figure out what is the labels for each of the elements on a page, is trying to understand the structure of the page, and is evaluating a lot of attributes underneath the hood. Is, for example, the username field is evaluating the name attribute. It could be evaluating the label. If there's a label element that is associated with the username field, is evaluating that. If you have ARIA labels for the username field, it will look at the ARIA labels. If there's a placeholder or for the input field that says username, it will just identify that field by the placeholder as well. So, and but you don't have to write the perfect HTML code. What you can simply just put the word username beside the text field, and UIlicious will be able to associate the two elements together, the label with the input field, simply because they are very close to each other. So that's how UIlicious work. But of course, even though I say that you don't have to write the perfect HTML code, but it does make the engine a lot more accurate if you are using semantic HTML, using labels to label your input field, or using ARIA labels, for example, to label your buttons and your input fields, or giving tooltips for each of the let's say if you have an image, you use a tooltip or alt text. It will help a lot with in your research in trying to identify what elements are on the field. So And another next question that is very common that people ask us after this is like, what happens if there are multiple elements on the screen that are similar on the page? For example, you're working on a catalog and there's a lot of add to cart buttons for the individual product, or you're working on a page with a user with one row in the whole table. So I'm going to show you how you can do this with another page. I'm going to show you over here. So this is on this page over here, you can see that there's a number of apply now buttons for each of the individual cards we have loaded on the page. There are 4 cards over here. There's 4 apply now buttons and 4 compare button. If I refresh the page, another thing that you'll notice is that this data is loaded dynamically from the backend. So it starts off with 0, and then later on when the page has loaded everything, you get 4. So UIlicious is able to handle this sort of delays very well. You automatically wait for elements to show up. And what do we do if we want to, let's say, pick the um, second card in the field, for example, on the page, for example. If you're using Selenium, for example, you might have to write a much more complex X path to select the apply now button that is relative to this phrase that we see. Or alternatively, you might need to hard code that you want to pick the second field all the time, the second card in the page all the time. So let me go ahead and show you how to write a test for picking the second apply now button. So over here, we have already ran the test, and this is the second card that we want to pick on, which is American Express Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer card. So it's very easy to do this in UIlicious. First, we just go to the page again. As you can see, this page, it hasn't loaded any of the card yet. But before we click on the Apply Now button, all we need to say is, I see American Express Singapore Airlines at KrisFlyer. And once you have seen it, it takes UIlicious will automatically wait for the element to appear. In this case, it took 2.5 seconds for the results to come back from the backend for the card to load itself. So once it has loaded it, it will try to automatically scroll to the center and center the card itself so that you can see what you're interacting with on the screenshot. And the next step is to just say, I click on apply now. So even though there's a lot of apply now buttons on the page, the engine is smart enough to figure out that because the last thing you're interacting with is the text or the phrase American Express Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer, is going to make an inference that the apply now button that you want to click on is most likely the one that's closest to that phrase or that occurrence of the text itself. So it's going to click on that button that you see in particular. Then you automatically switch to this actually opens up a new tab, and they will automatically switch to the new tab. So you can actually click on the previous, you can use the I switch tab to go back to the previous tab. But this is basically how we can write this sort of flows in UIlicious, and this is actually really useful because sometimes you may be working with on a web page where the data is dynamic. The order of your elements could change. This card may not always be the second. It could be the first card on the screen, the third card on the screen, or it might be um, so it wouldn't be such a good practice if you were to hard code the position of the card that you want to interact with. If each of the different cards that you're interacting with, you're expecting a different behavior. So that's how you can write this sort of test. So let me show you a similar test to this, but in this case, what I want to show you is how you can use JavaScript to do a more complex test itself. So let me go ahead and run this one. So UIlicious underneath the hood is built on top of JavaScript. It is, in fact, you can use ES6 syntax like let, like constants, the arrow functions. So over here, what we're trying to do is we're going to loop through a number of cards that we have inside our list. And if we do see that card, we're going to click on the compare button. So first, we got to put in all cards inside this array. So we have City Premium Miles card. We have the card that we're looking at, American Express, Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer, Maybank Horizon card, and a dummy text that doesn't exist. So we're going to go to our web page again. this over here is just a line for you to say how long you want the threshold before an error occurs to time out, but it's not really relevant in this test itself. So let me comment that out. It's not really very relevant. So what we have over here is for each card that we see in our array, if we do see that card, then we will click on the compare button. If we don't see it, we don't click on the compare button. One thing to note about UIlicious is that every command, every assertion command returns a Boolean variable. And if you want to use it in conditional, for example, in this case, you want to conditionally click on the compare button if that result shows up, then you can use error suppression mode so that if the element doesn't appear and the assertion fails, it doesn't raise an error, it just returns false so that we can get a test that is passing even if some of the items, some of the cards are not seen on the page. And finally, we're gonna click on all of the final compare button in the comparison list to have a side-by-side comparison. So let's step through each of our tests, our cards over here. So first, we're going to look for the City Premium Mouse card. We're going to click on the compare button. So we do see that that's the fourth one in the page over here, the fourth card. We're going to look at our previous card that we're looking at. I'll click on the compare button. Yes, we do see it. And you're going to look for the Maybank Horizons card. We do see that. So we're going to click on the comparison cards. Now we have 3 cards in our list right now. And the last one is we're going to look at the dummy text that look for the dummy text that I put in. But of course, it doesn't exist. Therefore, we do not execute line 18 and we don't click on the compare button. Instead, we're just going to do we're just going to look at the black bar at the bottom, which has the CSS class of compare list, and we're going to click on compare for all of these cards over here. Now, at the end of the test, you'll see that it loads another page. It's actually supposed to bring you to a side-by-side comparison page, which we could write more assertions for, but this is just a showcase for you to see how you can do use conditionals and loops to do more complex tests over here. So this is the basics of UIlicious. You can actually make use of, there's actually a lot more features. For example, you can make use of data sets to set your data variables. You can actually, yes? Mhm.
I think I got the audio better, but I need to make a quick change. That's right. So I go there. Okay, I think that, no, that's application. The problem is I can't make the switch without messing up the audio. Um, Input device. Okay, I'm gonna mute one of the microphones. So that's input device, output device. I change this to there. And then, can you say something?
Hello, how is this? Is this working?
A little bit. It's echoey. But I don't know if it's echoey on the live stream. Why don't you go ahead and start talking, and then I'm gonna listen on my phone, and I'll let you know if it's echoey. But it's not too bad of an echo if it is an echo. But you can
Okay.
go ahead and get back into it.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you another feature, a very quick one, but this is a way for you to, you can use data sets over here as a way to switch out the test data for your test scripts itself. There's actually many ways to switch test data in UIlicious, but I'm just going to show you this because it's one of the most common ones. People usually want to use this to switch between production and staging data set. So let me go ahead and run this. So over here we have, let me open up the production data set for you to take a look at it. So over here we define the URL as data.url, the email as well as the password. So if you notice over here, the password is secret. You can actually put in secret variables so that when the report is generated, and you want to share the report with another colleague, a third party vendor, for example, then the secret is masked out over here. This test is slightly older, so let me see if this works. Okay, so the test, yeah, Netflix has changed the cookie banner, so it doesn't work anymore. But the test is going to continue and do its thing anyway. Uh, okay, so but I think here I just want to demonstrate that the password over here is masked out, even though we use data. The password over here is in the report itself is masked out because this is a secret data itself. So this is basically what you can do with UIlicious, and you can also, after you're done setting up the test, most people what they will do is to schedule it. So you can say, let's run this test on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge. We can run it on IE as well, but I'm not sure if Netflix even supports IE 11. You can put that off. And you can select when you want to, how often you want to run this test. Let's put this on production. How often you want to run this test? At what interval? Maybe you can turn it off on Saturday and Sunday, or maybe you turn it on Saturday and Sunday because more people are watching Netflix then. And if something goes wrong, you can say, send an email to someone, or you could also say, hey, send a Slack message to some member in our team. We also support other sort of chat software that supports webhook applications. So what you basically get after you've done scheduling is that you will be able to see it on your monitoring dashboard. So over here on monitoring dashboard, we can see our test has been executing for the past few days. Let's take a look at what the results are for github.com. So there you go. You can see that, oh, it's pretty stable for github.com itself. I believe that our tests need to be updated for netflix.com, but pretty much it's been passing from until last Monday when there's a new UI for Netflix and which requires the test to be updated. There we go. So that's basically it. Let me also show you how you can write a test for something as complicated as salesforce.com. So let's go ahead and click on the test. Oh, actually, let me grab one of the tests that we have been running over time as well. So there we go. Open this up. So over here, I'm also using data sets to hide away my password. So this is actually a dummy text or a default text, but it's actually taking from one of my data sets over here. So you can, let me open up our test script over here to show you how the flow looks like. So the first few parts of the test is just setting up the test data itself, a little bit of the test data. But one of the things that we highly encourage in UIlicious is to make sure that your test is reusable. So you can reuse your test in many ways, but one of the most common ways to reuse parts of your test is to use the test.run command. So you can say test.run to execute another segment of a test. So usually people would split out test parts like login flows, so which is very common in a lot of test flows, and we use that module everywhere because so that you don't have to spend your time updating the login in 100 tests. Instead, you could just update it in one file, and that all the tests that requires the login process would be using the updated file and updated flow itself. So first we will do test. We'll run the off login test so that we can log into Salesforce itself. There's a few parts over here that just skipping the 2FA verification process because you can actually whitelist our testing grid on Salesforce and it will not prompt you for 2FA. But and what we are doing over here is actually to click on the app launcher. If you take a look at the app launcher, even though we say in English app launcher, but what we see is actually clicking on is this 9 squares over here. So this is how UIlicious interacts with icons. So this icon in particular within Salesforce, it has the tooltip app launcher itself. So we are able to target the app launcher just from this icon button just from its tooltip itself. So you can actually see the tooltip popping up in the next step. and then we're going to fill in our the application, the module that we want to open up in Salesforce, and then we're going to create a new car, fill in the car attributes, for example, create a new contact, fill it in. So if you look at the test script itself, even though this flow is within Salesforce, is a pretty long flow of filling up the different, creating an entity and validating the entity at the end. So we're going to do a validation at the end. It's actually a pretty straightforward script to read. If you look at the test script itself, it's just mostly I feel, I click, I feel, I click, I see. So it's actually quite simple to do, much more complex flow even with UIlicious itself. Yeah, so that's actually pretty much it for my demo itself. Are there any questions so far, Kevin?
Turn my audio back on. And hopefully I'm not echoey, because I could certainly be. I did finally get it. You did have an echo there for a minute, and that was entirely my fault, but I did finally get it all working out just in time. Yeah, I do have questions, and thank you again for doing this demo. I really appreciate it, and I wish I got to see the whole thing, but I'm happy I got to at least watch the desktop stuff. And you had given this demo to me before, so it's pretty familiar, but still really cool to see. Just some quick observations, and yeah, anybody on the stream, please do ask any questions you have. I'm more than happy to confer them over and ask. That's kind of why I put this together. But couple observations. First, I really like the combo of having the code there, but also the test runner and all in one single spot. That's one of the shortcomings, I think, or one of the ways that WebDriver IO can improve is to get, you have your code and then your test runner, and they're kind of separate, and it just makes it a little bit more difficult to understand what's going on. With this, like, you have all that list of steps, you know how long each step took, and it's all part of
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. You can see it running in that browser screen. And with
Yeah.
that, yeah, with that browser screen, is that just screenshots, or how does that work?
So this right now they are all screenshots.
Okay,
We have some requests to get it a video feed itself, but right now it's just screenshots.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Oh.
It still helps. Helps a lot.
Mhm.
And that's running just, you have a browser kind of farm that it runs through, like
Yeah, we
virtual
have a
machines.
browser farm. So Chrome and Firefox, we have it running on a Docker cluster, like a
Okay.
large cluster of Docker containers, and the
Yeah.
rest of the browsers they are on VMs itself.
Cool. Awesome. Is there a way to, like, as far as debugging a script, so you find that something isn't working, is there a way to pause, or is that kind of unnecessary? Like, one thing in WebDriver IO is you can pause the execution and kind of run commands with it paused. Is there a way to do that here, or do you just find it not necessary?
That's a good question. I think it is actually necessary, and we do get that feature request from time to time, especially when people are interacting with building up a more complex test. Sometimes they might have trouble trying to get the test to work, to specifically target a few elements.
Mm-hmm.
So actually that's something that we want to introduce in the future as well, the ability to pause the test so that you can manually interact with them. I think another thing that some people wanted to do was to be able to complete their reCAPTCHA. So we're able to pause the test,
Oh my
complete a
gosh.
reCAPTCHA.
Yeah, I get that question so often, and I'm like, no, no, there's nothing. I guess, yeah, if you want to pause it, that's the only thing that I say is, yeah, you'd have to add like a browser debug or a pause in there, really quickly fill it out, and then keep moving on. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of those testing things where I'm like, there's not a good answer. They're
Yeah.
specifically made to where the computer can't fill it out. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of it. Yeah. Cool. I was gonna ask, how long have you been working on this, or your team been
We've
working
been
on this?
We've been working on this for 3 years. The first year when we are working on UIlicious is in beta, so
Hmm.
we actually send it out to a lot of users to get it tested on their website, to be frank, that at that point of time, UIlicious was very rough. It had a lot of rough edges. Sometimes the test engine would tell it to fill in the username field and you would fill out the password field instead. So the first year was just we did not commercialize the product itself. We just did a lot of product improvements
Mm-hmm.
until we were satisfied. Then we made it a commercial product.
Some 3 years, man. It seems like it's been out there longer, but that's a good amount of time, regardless.
Mm.
Um, we have a question asked: Do all these tests run locally or in the cloud? And I think it's in the cloud, right? Or
Yes,
yeah,
it's run in the cloud.
yeah. You had kind of mentioned it was through some Docker containers and
Yeah.
virtual containers and stuff. Okay. Um, is there a way to run it locally, or probably not? Because it's all handled in the website, right?
Yeah. So there's a few ways that some users have gotten it to work locally. When, for example, they use Servio.net or I believe there was another ngrok.io. You could use
Oh,
that
okay.
to do a tunnel to
Mm-hmm.
establish a tunnel to your local host application. So that's some of
Yeah.
the ways that people have work around this to get it tested to get
Yeah.
it to test local host applications.
Yeah. ngrok, I've used that in the past, and it's really helpful. It's like you don't, unless you need it for a very specific thing, you're not really going to use it all that much. But the times that you do need it, it is just so helpful because what ngrok does is um, if I remember correctly, say you have a local server running,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, this is for those folks on the stream who aren't familiar with it. You have a local server running. You want to expose that server to the public internet, and so ngrok will actually kind of handle that for you and give you a full URL that you can access. And on any browser, you can go to that URL, and it's going to go all the way to your machine as if your computer is a public server. So it's obviously got security issues in a way. I mean, it's really clamped down, but you probably don't want to use it for any long-term serving of content. But it is really useful if you need to get a quick server running for public use, especially like on a mobile phone or something like that. Really nice. I had another question. So I really like the smart element selectors. I did miss the part about how you avoid the duplicate. So I see, like, here in your example, you have I click save, then I wait, then I click save again, then I wait.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work again?
Over okay, so let me actually pop over to the other test that I have over there. So let me go back to this example where I'm showing you how do you select one of the
Mm-hmm.
cards, the apply now button for the cards. So UIlicious what is looking for when is trying to identify the target element to interact with. Besides looking at your how semantically accurate um, like it would there is a bias for your leashes to click on buttons that are actually coded as buttons
Mm-hmm.
or links. Over here in this case, if you have multiple targets that are applicable for that are good candidates for the apply now buttons, then that's where it starts to look at other ways to identify the correct elements. In this case, what it usually looks at is what were you doing previously? What were your previous steps?
Mm-hmm.
So if your previous steps were to interact with one element like American Express Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer, it's gonna what the engine actually does is that it leaves a something like a breadcrumb there. So that the test engine was like, there's a lot of breadcrumbs near these elements. You've been recently been interacting with this within your test a lot. So I'm gonna make an intelligent guess that you want to click on the apply now button that is close to this thing that you were recently interacting with. So that's pretty
Okay,
much how,
that's really
yeah,
smart.
the engine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. I think that's got to be so helpful for getting quicker tests written. Is not
Yeah.
having to like really do a full inspect of what. Like I,
Mm.
I spend about half my day inspecting the page, trying to get a good selector in place, and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to be able to say, I want it to click the button that makes the most sense. So that's really neat. I want to ask
Yeah.
how. So, how stable, like, do you find, like, from customer feedback and everything, do you find this kind of smart element finder? And then also, how much has it improved over time?
So I think when we first started out building UIlicious and letting people know that we're building it, a lot of people were very excited. We got a lot of test data, data about how reliable our test engine was, and initially it was only 80%. So it meant that 1 in 5 commands would fail. You
Mm-hmm.
would be targeting the wrong thing. It was for me, it wasn't satisfactory enough. Like I think you should be passing at least like 99% of the time.
Right.
So we were inspecting a lot of every time people send us a report that hey it's not working for my web page over here, we will inspect it and look at is it whether or not there's something special about React applications, or is it something about Vue.js application or Dojo application and so on and so forth. So we pretty much like went through all sorts of we looked through the source code of so many different websites to eventually get the test engine to like close to 98, 99% accuracy. Most of the time
Mm-hmm.
it's able to click on something. The only times when UI-licious might get confused, there's a few times you might get confused. One is that you use semantically correct labeling. You use a ARIA label to label your field, but some programmers label it might label it wrongly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why some programmers actually label tag their password field to the username field
Oh
because I think
gosh.
they will copy they copy
Yeah.
pasted everything. So if you copy paste everything and you didn't update your ARIA label, that's where the engine actually would identify the wrong thing because it's actually very biased to look at your ARIA labels. So if
So
you
it catches
yeah,
bugs for you.
it does, like it catches. So it's true
Yeah.
in a way. It catches a bug. So let's say if a visually disabled person was using your
Right.
website, you're going to see
That'd be bad.
username instead of username, password, email.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean that's a feature. That's not a bug right there. That is a feature.
I would say it's a feature.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There were actually times where because of this we would feedback to the team that reported us this error with the hey it's actually a bug on your side,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually educate our users on doing good accessibility.
Yeah. Do you have any of that built into the tool?
Not right now. That's actually something that we want to work on in the future so that as you run a test, UIlicious might tell you that hey you have bad labels here and there,
Mm-hmm.
like bad accessibility labels.
Yeah, there's the tools like Axe Core, or just I think it's just Axe, but um, you could even just have like an extra tab up there on the top that just says accessibility, and it'll just do an audit. And
Yeah,
those audits aren't perfect, but they help get you 75% of the way there. So
yeah.
at the very least, it could be that, and it would just read through whatever sites that whatever pages, it'll just automatically run the test and kind
Hmm.
of throw that out there. One other question I have is with the simplicity of how, like, this is JavaScript, but it's really simple JavaScript. Have you found that product owners or yeah, mainly product or project own, yeah, project managers, those type of folks, have they kind of tried out the tool and found use of it?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, when we designed UIlicious, the people that I was thinking in mind was actually the manual testers that I used to work with. So even though I work in Singapore, we had a team. In my previous company, we had a team based in Vietnam. They were manual testers, and they were looking at their checklist that is written in Excel that says, "Go to this URL, fill in username, fill in password." And I
Mm-hmm.
was just thinking why can't a machine do that?
Right.
And yeah, so that's basically the inspiration for us. We did that thinking in mind that we want to be able to make test automation accessible to manual testers, because I did ask my old manual testers like, could you guys, can I teach you Selenium? And they basically got scared from
Right.
Java.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
get
they
scared from Java. Yeah.
yeah.
Can't imagine
Yeah,
somebody who
so
hasn't, touched a lot of code to try and, yeah.
yeah, and like trying to get the manual testers over the hill of using the Chrome inspector to find out what's the CSS selected
Mm-hmm.
XPath is very terrifying for them. Like they would yeah, usually it's very difficult to teach them how to craft the right CSS selector to target the element is a bit of art and science for them that
Yeah,
might be a
it
bit too
is.
high level. Yeah, so that's where in fact 50% of our users are manual testers itself. I think we even had a company that started interviewing their manual testers with UIlicious. Like if you can write a test script in UIlicious, you pass and we will hire
Oh,
you.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still code, so like you can easily edit stuff. That some of the problems I've had with some other tools that are similar to this is that it's once you get like you know how they have where you click the element or you interact with the page and it does the test recorder.
Mm,
It's so good in theory, but in reality, once you have that test recorded, it's so difficult to make changes to it in my experience. So having it just be code here, like you can make a quick little change super quick. I need to keep saying quick, but yeah, and that you can even do for loops and stuff like that you're showing there. And I specifically remember like asking during a product demo, like, can I do like a for loop or something? They're like, well, not really. I'm like, okay, well, you're just like taking out so much power from behind away from me. But here, like, it's kind of the best of both worlds, where you have the power of code, but it's very simplified. It makes it really easy to work with. One other thing I wanted to mention about that is one thing that I like to tell people is not to test. There's a lot of times you don't want to test, specifically with kind of newer sites or sites that are still being validated from a user perspective, and
mm,
so you don't want to with like WebDriver IO. It's a great tool, but it does take a commitment to write these tests. It does take a fair amount of time to build out the page object, to have all the right selectors, to have it go through the full flow and everything.
mhm.
And so that might not be worth it in the long run if the page is going to change super fast. But with a tool like this, like it's a lot less trouble because you have those smart selectors, so you don't need to worry as much about getting the right selector in place. And if the elements move around a little bit, it should still be smart enough to figure it out. And then just overall, there's you can write a lot of not the most in-depth tests, but you don't want to be writing the most in-depth tests. You want kind of your happy path tests for
Yeah.
kind of proving that the main functionality works, so that when I go to my demo, when we go to demo this to the client or to the director who is wants to see it in action, I can run all my demo tests and be confident that everything works. I think there's
Yeah.
a huge value in that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the things actually when we were actually surprised that a lot of the customers they were starting to use this to the managers themselves they were starting to use this to demo to their marketing team or the business stakeholders or their if they are
hmm.
like a dev house they will actually demo the test itself to their
Mm-hmm.
clients and say, hey, this is exactly what you wanted, right? And I was
Ha.
like, yeah, they would just click, oh yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted.
That's neat. Like,
Yeah.
so you have that little playback. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Can you like slow it down, because sometimes the tests run a little bit too fast if you're trying to show it off, and they
Yeah, you
add like
can.
a delay. So you have autoplay.
Yeah, you can disable the autoplay. The
Hmm.
autoplay just
Okay,
plays
so then they
like
can
a
just click
slideshow.
to, or it's just a slideshow. Oh, that makes sense. It's screenshots.
Yeah, there you go. You
That's
can
pretty neat.
turn off the autoplay.
Okay, we got a couple other questions. Let's see. So, uh, does it help that product owners or managers can read test results or even write the test themselves?
Yeah, it does. So actually, in fact, I found a lot of time. I actually spent a lot of time speaking to the teams that use UIlicious as well as teams that don't. And I found that. there's so many of times like the marketing team and the management team are going to be roped in anyway for some last minute testing, and they get so annoyed by it. But there's some especially small teams. In small teams, sometimes the developers are so overwhelmed by all the work that they have to do on their pipeline, that the only person who is doing testing and gatekeeping the release is the project managers themselves. They are doing
Mm-hmm.
all of the testing and they have a paper checklist right by their side. They really have everything in English, so why not just have all of these checklists that you have in written in English, convert them into UIlicious script? So we had a number of very small teams with the project managers solely being responsible for the UIlicious test itself. So once they had that done, they would instead of like waking up every morning to do the test, they would just wake up every morning to look at the dashboard to see if everything is green or red. So it
Yeah.
actually helps quite a number of teams.
Yeah, and it keeps project managers busy so that they're not bothering me.
Yeah, I think one of the understated or um, importance in testing is that we always look at the communication between the testers and the developers and how do we
Hmm.
make it better. But there's actually a lot of communication that needs to be done from the testers to the managers who are gatekeeping the release as well. So it's very important to for them to be able to see what's the status of all the health of the applications basically, and
Yeah.
if they can bother use less, it is better for the whole morale of the team.
Right. Yeah. And just having a built-in dashboard of test runs is really helpful. That's one thing that another reason that I would say you shouldn't write more tests if the tests that you have aren't public. Like if nobody's actually looking at the results of these tests, there's no reason to write new tests because they're not going to be used by anybody. You need to have some sort of dashboard that people check on a regular basis to make sure that the tests that you do have are running. And so having it built in here again is really, really helpful
Hmm.
to have for the whole team to be able to look at that. Yeah. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I don't. Have you ever had any kids try to write tests just for the fun of watching a website get filled out or whatever?
Not kids, but definitely we had like adults trying to do really silly things with UIlicious. I
Mm-hmm.
think I definitely had a friend who got so frustrated applying for and booking an appointment with a government agency that that he decided to write a UIlicious script just to log in every day to see whether there's
To do that.
open availability and book that slot that he wanted. It was like,
That's
dude.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had way back when there was a program at my work where if you bike to work, you can log it and you can convert that to like gift cards for various things. So it was a pretty nice little program, but you had to do it. If I bike to work 3 times a week, then I have to do that 3 times, and it was a slow website, and you'd have to this tedious filling it out. So I ended up writing a um, what was there was automation script back when Node just came out. It's one of
mm-hmm,
the really popular ones. Casper. It wasn't
mm-hmm.
Casper. It was the one before that. Like Casper was built off of this one. Anyway, so I wrote the script for that, and I would just run it whenever I got in the morning with the current date, and it would fill that all out for me. But having something like this would be even better and just make it even easier to run.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That sort of automation stuff is really neat, and yeah, you can write full code and everything, but this like it takes care of all that stuff for you. You don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about selectors or anything like that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a neat idea. I've also thought it would be neat to have a game that you need to play. Actually, um, there was a test challenge. There was a game called 1 to 50, and it
Mm-hmm.
was how quick can you write automation. So I don't you are you familiar with the game 1 to 50?
No, I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
that.
I had never heard it about it before, but basically you have a 5 by 5 grid of 25 numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to click starting at 1, and they're
Mm-hmm.
randomly organized. You click 1, and then you have to click 2, then you have to click 3, 4 as fast as
Oh,
you
okay.
can. And
Ah.
the next number that comes up isn't, so if you click 1, the one that replaces it, so the 1 disappears. The one that replaces it, or the number that replaces it, isn't 26. It's anywhere between 26 and 50. So you have to kind of be aware of it. So the challenge was, can you write automation that finishes this game as quick as possible? So somebody did in,
Wow.
yeah, somebody did in WebDriver IO, but I bet you could do it in here really easily.
I think you can do it this really easily. You just need to
Yeah,
create a for loop of 1 to
right.
50 and just say, I see, I click, I see, I click.
Yeah, that's like the simplest. Um, yeah, it was
Yeah,
Phantom
it was
JS.
so easy.
That's
Yeah,
um,
I remember that now, Phantom JS.
yeah. Thanks, Eugene. That was definitely it. And I'm happy to
Yeah,
not go to sleep not knowing what it was, because that would have bothered me. Yeah, you could be as simple as what just a little loop, and
yeah.
yeah, um, that'd be a fun little product game. I think 1 to 50. It was some website. Um, Someone how to beat the online game 1 to 50 with a neural network. Do you really need a neural network to beat that game?
Hmm.
Yeah, you can't see the screen, but this is how it works for the viewers.
Ah,
So I can here, I send it in chat. Let's see how quick you can. Let's finish up with that. You write me this
okay.
test, and I've
It's not
sold
a
everything.
Flash application to be sure, right?
No, no.
No, okay.
It does have ads on it, so it kind of slows down a bit, but
Okay, let's
yeah, a
see.
Flash application, that would be so much fun.
No, we can't do Flash anymore.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can.
Okay. Less than I think less than equal to 50.
Hmm.
I plus plus. Let's just see if I click I works. I think that should be enough.
Might be a little too fast. You might need to have a pause in there because there is an animation,
Ah, okay.
but we'll see.
Let me just put like a 1 second wait.
Yeah.
Oh, that's long enough. Arguments do not match for. Oh wait, I think I need to.
Oh,
So that's one thing. They expect.
okay.
I think that's something I need to fix in UIlicious. It doesn't like it if you give it numbers. It
A
always
number.
expects it to be a string.
Yeah, which most of the time it would be.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have a variable, it's not gonna work. I wonder if that cookie. So it had a little pop up that showed cookies.
Hmm.
Yeah. See, let's see the. You have to do. I click continue with cookies. Man, that is so
I
much
click.
easier.
Is
uh,
it already clicking on the things behind the scene? It is.
ah,
Yeah, it was able to click through anyway.
but you see, the one hasn't disappeared, so it didn't activate the game.
It clicked on.
It clicked
What did
it,
it?
but it didn't activate it because
Ah,
that
okay.
modal, the background, the transparent background is intercepting. It's not the best
Mm-hmm.
code on that website. Not the best JavaScript I've run across.
Yeah. Let's try to get rid of the cookie banner first.
Hmm.
I think that there is a score counter over here which might confuse it. So let me just try. Yeah, the so
Oh, it's actually
the
leveled. Yeah.
yeah, the engine might get confused because there's 2 and 2 here. So one of the things that you might need to do is specify the box, the container that you want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to say, or you could just use the ID over here. So you
Yeah.
could
Grid.
say UI.context. Let's work within this grid. Let's use the. So UI.context is a way for you to specify the scope that you want the
Mm-hmm.
test to interact with. So it's especially useful if you are working with iframes. So
Mm-hmm.
iframes can be really tricky. So there we go. Let's try this again. So you got rid of the cookie banner already.
Yeah, so it got rid of the banner. It looked like it was clicking, but I don't.
I don't think so. The score was still one.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
but
think
it was finding the element and it was trying to click it. One of the things about this is the JavaScript is based off of a touch event. So
Mhm.
I don't know why it's based off of a touch event instead of a click event. Oh, no,
Mm.
that looks good. Yeah, look, it's
Yeah,
running.
yeah. He's doing his own thing. Our score is getting high. Let's see how fast we can go. Is that
You,
actually animation?
yeah, there is.
Uh, no, but it's really fast actually. The
Yeah, you
animation.
might be able to get away with it because you shouldn't be clicking. Um, I mean, you still have to get through 25 numbers before you click the next number. So it really shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Nice.
There you go.
Ah,
Beat the game.
yeah. We get the highest high score.
Yes. Yeah, I bet if you took out that weight, is there a way to do? I guess you can do 0.5 for a shorter weight below a second.
I believe you can. I believe you can do a 0.5. I don't know if the engine rounds it to one.
Mm-hmm. I guess it'll say in the commands. Well, now you have another demo to show off.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool game.
okay, so it does wait for half a second then, but
Mm-hmm.
the execution takes a second, so it might still round up.
Yeah, yeah. I think over here we do round the numbers a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, cool. I don't see any other questions on the chat. Thank you so much for joining. Anything you want to leave off with?
No, no. Thank you so much for having me here as well.
Awesome. And so if people are interested, they can go to UIlicious.com, and that's it's spelled UILICIOUS.com. I
Yeah.
misspelled it about 5 times, and then when I was writing up the title of the stream, I was like, oh no, that's not bad. And I have to say, the coolest icon, I love it. It's a green check mark, but it's also a piece of cake.
Yes, yes. Testing
Yeah.
is a piece of cake.
Yes, and it's like just perfect. Like, how
Most
did
people
you?
see the cake, they don't see the check mark.
Right, yeah. But once you see it,
Yeah.
it's there. So
You
I
cannot
think
unsee it now.
I know. It's like the FedEx has the arrow in it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, that's just one of those neat things that's so satisfying to see. So
Yeah. Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna click the end stream button and then I'll hang up. So folks, thanks for joining. Thanks for your questions, and I'll try if you have a product out there you would like to see demoed here, let me know in the comments. And until next time, have fun testing.